Welcome to our 5 on 5. We're pleased to be joined by Ken Trautman, the President and CEO of People's Bank. Ken, thank you for coming in. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Our pleasure. So tell us, your bank has prospered of late, unlike a few other community banks. What is the secret to your success?
Well, I think the secret starts out maybe 5 or 6 years ago during the good times. That's when you have to be extra cautious about what you're going to do down the future. Some of the biggest mistakes you can make in banking happen when the economy's great. Pretty tough to make a bad loan in a bad economy because everybody's aware of what the issues are. And we were fortunate enough to have a board of directors that lived through the early '80 recession. And in mid-2000, when the economy was going great guns and we were watching what was happening and house prices were skyrocketing, and we got a little bit concerned that maybe it was growing too fast and the bank pulled back a little bit. Short-term impact of that was some reduced profits in '07, '08. Really when other banks were still doing extremely well, but it positioned us for when the downturn really hit in '09. Really the banking crisis started for us in '09. So now we have money to lend again and have been taking advantage of that opportunity in this market. So.
Yeah, and obviously the bank is, as we're talking about, doing quite well. You have a new branch on Barnett Road. Tell us about that.
We did. We started 5 years ago as part of our strategic plan looking at an East Medford, South Medford branch location. And that's really what it was, a site we could have about a 3,000 square foot branch to serve the people on the south end of the valley. Had a difficult time. I mean, property values, if you look back then for real estate, residential and commercial, were really high. We just couldn't get a deal put together that made sense, so we kind of sat on it. Then the recession hit and property values started coming down, and a site that we really liked on East Medford on the Barnett Road Highland intersection became available. Bigger than what we were thinking about. We were looking at a branch, but this site was big enough to do a 3-story building on. So we looked at it and said, we're currently, our headquarters is located on Biddle Road on a leased location that we really couldn't buy. And so we said, it makes sense financially for us to put our new branch on a very visible site, very accessible site, but also move our head office and our backroom operations to that location too.
Wow, okay. Well, obviously you guys are doing very well biding your time and waiting for opportunities. I want to ask you what you're seeing in the future for 2013 and beyond. But first, we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. Again, we're here with Ken Trautman, the President and CEO of People's Bank. Ken, what do you see for the future, 2013 and beyond? Well,
in our planning process, we're looking at 2013 being somewhat similar to 2012. Slight improvement. Locally, we're starting to see a residential real estate market that's picking up a little bit of steam. And that's going from really what a dead market. There was just so little of activity. But the lower-end homes, lower-end 175,000 and less right now, multiple bidders on. So we're starting to see some price appreciation in that area. Mid-range homes, still a little slow. Good buys out there, but with interest rates at historical lows. I mean, 30-year fixed rate, 3.375. It's unbelievable. A big part of our business right now is residential mortgage. It's hard to count how long that can stay with you, but it's been significant for us, and we're looking at next year, probably the year after, being very similar. Government's keeping rates at artificially low for a while to stimulate the economy, and I think we'll see that continue next year.
Now, I want to ask you, we hear a lot about how banks aren't loaning money. And coming out of the recession, it might be understandable, but people keep saying that's the case. Do you see that? Are banks loaning money nowadays?
It's a good question. I was in Washington, D.C. in September talking with our congressman, and they asked me the same question. And it depends on where you are. Each market's a little bit different. In our case, the last 3 years, we've been growing over 15% each year in loan growth. Now, not all of that's new business. I mean, a lot of that's refinances. The same thing that's applying to the consumer side with low rates applies to commercial borrowers. So we're taking advantage of borrowers who want to lock in a long-term rate that's at an all-time low. And not every bank's been treated evenly, I guess, with this recession. If you were able to have some capital going out of the markets, out of the recession, then you're in a position to actually be a lender.
Now, I'm curious, we have about 30 seconds left. I'm curious, what is the difference between banks? I mean, I'm assuming, you talk about you're a community bank, so you're very different from the massive national banks, but what is the difference between all banks?
It's a good question, and there's not a quick answer on it, but we all have the same products. I mean, it's like going to the grocery store or a restaurant. Everybody has pretty much similar things. The difference is when you have a problem, or if you have a special need or something unique comes up. pretty hard to call Wells Fargo and talk to their CEO or address an issue at a branch. They aren't very good at handling unique type of situations. And to be honest, a local bank, local business puts so much money in the local community through their donations, their volunteer work, just the buying power of what we do when we buy equipment and furniture. Our new building used local subs. People really forget that value of having local businesses, whether it's banks or other businesses.
Fascinating, very informative. Ken, thanks for coming by.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Stay with us. We'll be right back.